It's all about the seasons. Welcome to Nugget 373. And what is the difference between the word season in Genesis 1 and then when we hear about the different, quote, seasons in Genesis 8? Tell us all about it, Steve.
We did a short on this issue just the other day. I want to spend a little more time on it and explain a little more. In live science, they define what seasons are. And they said seasons are periods of the year with distinct weather conditions and day lengths. And we know that as spring, summer, fall, winter. But the thing is, it only takes about 10 degrees of temperature change for the water cycle to kick in. And you have evaporation and cloud formation and rain. The problem is, the issue is, in Genesis 2:5, God says that he did not let it rain on this earth. In 2:6, it says he watered the ground from mist that came up. There was a perfectly stable environment all over this earth. There would have been no seasonal changes. It was all the same no matter where you are. Whatever time of year it is still the same temperature, the same basic weather pattern. Genesis 6, 7, and 8 is where the flood account takes place. In Genesis 8:22, that's when seed time, harvest, summer, winter, they shall not cease, the Bible says. The seasons that we know of came into being at the end of Noah's flood. In Genesis 1:14, we see that God put lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night. Let them be for signs and for seasons. So we have the word seasons used there, and I get asked this quite often. But the word seasons there, it is an appointment, a fixed time, a festival, a year, conventionally a year, by implication, an assembly as convened for a definite purpose, technically the congregation, by extension, the place of meeting, also a signal, as appointed beforehand, appointed sign, appointed time, place of assembly, solemn assembly. It goes on and on. But notice it's from another word that actually means to fix upon, by agreement or appointment, by implication, to meet at a stated time, to summon a trial, to direct in a certain quarter or position, to engage, as in for marriage, and it goes on and on. The word seasons that's used in Genesis 1 no way indicates that it's a weather pattern or a length of the day. They are markers in the sky. The sun, moon, and stars are therefore a giant clock and a giant calendar in the sky. And every year, the same stars are in the same place as they were the year before.
That's why when we've traveled out west, sometimes we see rock formations with holes in them where the indigenous people would use this to know when they should start harvesting or when they should start planting, I should say. They were watching the seasons of the sky clock, as you would say here, and it didn't have anything to do. Right. Even though they were post-flood people and these things were post-flood, they were using as far as their clock to know what it was. It wasn't, they weren't using the seasons as we think of it today.
They were using the sky so they would know what season is coming up. They still line up today. And they claim it was about 1,000 years, roughly, plus or minus. And those holes and those crevices still line up today. They still shine exactly where they did back then. And they have evidence because where they shine, there's a marker there.
In other words, they still work.
Absolutely, which is impossible.
Well, no, it's not impossible. It's the way God set it up.
Correct. It's impossible to happen on its own that way.
And that's why he's explaining the seasons here in Genesis 1, not to be confused with the modern definition of the weather patterns and the time of year that we think of as seasons. But we use the term season sometimes, like it's the holiday season. It's a season in your life. We use that term to mean epochs or periods or just times, which is more in line with what the definitions give versus the fall, winter, spring, summer, those things, because that is clearly spelled out in Genesis 8:22. That's why it's set apart and stated and defined.
And we're not saying don't use the word seasons when you talk about summer or winter.
We're just trying to clarify that in Genesis 1, that what comes to our mind is not what is meant by seasons there. We're trying to point that out and clarify what the term there is referring to specifically.
Correct.
Okay, we need you to subscribe, and we've been offering a free video to our 1,000th subscriber. We're almost there. Thank you.